Hey there, this is Natalie, and while I do have a proper scripted video in the works that I hope to have out this evening, I just wanted to post the edited version of a stream I just did, catching up on the latest news around Gamergate 2. I've been away for a week at my dad's, looking after stuff for him while he was in the UK for my grandfather's funeral, so I haven't had my equipment to stream or make any videos. I couldn't afford to go to it myself, or even to renew my expired passport, so doing that was really the only way I could help out. But it did mean I couldn't work for a week, aside from some work on scripts for videos. And that was pretty frustrating in what turned out to be such an eventful week for news. So I've tried to cover all the stuff I didn't get to talk to as it happened in this stream. So we begin with Toriyama's sad passing, and eventually get right up to date by basically discussing how much of a boomer Matt Walsh is for his takes on anime and gaming. I was actually horrified to learn he's younger than me. Still, hopefully this catches us up on that side of things, because I have some plans for some pre-Core 2 Mushoku Tensei videos that I hope to do this week, as well as some other stuff, which I talk about towards the end of the stream. I'm really hoping that with Mushoku Tensei coming back, I can finally start to turn things around. But with everything that's happened, and the fact I had to take a week off at a bad time, I really am in a bad position, as has become far too much of a trend over the past 2 years. So unfortunately, I do have to throw in some embarrassing e-begging before we get into the stream. So if you can afford it and want to help me get back on my feet, then there's a link to my coffee in the description, and any help is hugely appreciated. But now, let's get into the Gamergate catch-up, and I hope to see you again later with a more normal essay type video, which I hope you're going to find interesting. Remember that you can check out these streams live and join in the conversation by following me on Twitch. And there are also full VODs of all of my streams, which stay up for 14 days after the stream happens. There's no outro on this one, because I say goodbye at the end of the stream segment, so it seemed a bit redundant. So I'll thank you for watching, and say thank you to everyone who's helped me out during another very difficult time now. I love you all, and I hope you enjoyed the stream. Hey everyone! I am sorry I've been away for the last week. I just got back from my dad's, where I was pet sitting for him, looking after his 2 doggos and his cat while he went back to the UK for my grandfather's funeral. So I didn't have any of my equipment and wasn't able to make any content. So I only just got back not that long ago tonight, and I really felt the urge to kind of get on stream and talk about all of the things that I kind of missed being able to talk about for the last week. In the end, while I was there, I didn't have much to do apart from, looking after my little bro and little sis, as I like to call the doggos. So I was just kind of moping around, being depressed, and making the most of my dad's Netflix, but unfortunately I decided to use that to binge watch all of Bojack Horseman. Not the best thing to watch when you're depressed. I really started watching it just to kind of maybe get some new jokes to make about Walsh, but it's actually incredibly good, but I couldn't stop watching it. But it really isn't designed for when you're in a bit of a dark time. So yeah, I will be making some content about it though, because it is interesting. But for now, other than watching that, I was just kind of keeping up with the latest on the whole Gamergate fiasco. And there was so many things that came up just in a week that, I felt like would have made videos on their own or topics for streams on their own. So it's kind of, I wanted to cover some of those things. I'm going to briefly cover some of the older stuff that, probably seems like ancient history now, even though it was like a week ago. But then I want to get on to, stuff from the last couple of days. in terms of the clownery of Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire and some other stuff like that. So strap in. Yeah, it is going to be another one of those kind of commentary type things. I have noticed when I post these on YouTube, or clips from them on YouTube, I've had a few people sort of going, when did you become such a grifter and all this sort of thing. And I mean, I've always made the odd video that's more sort of opinionated stuff. I mean, a lot of people found me because of the videos about neuralities. I've made videos about localization drama and things like that in the past. I didn't typically talk about gaming too much because my channel's an anime channel. I've got a few videos about gaming, but it wasn't kind of the crux of my channel. But when I'm on Twitch, I feel like if I want to talk about current day news and things like that, I don't really see it as grifting. It's not like I make a ton of money out of doing this, and I haven't been making like 200 videos about it. It's just something I genuinely do have opinions on and do care about. And with the situation being as it is, there's kind of new developments all the time. And, I feel like it's interesting to talk about. But for those of you who do see it as kind of like I'm getting on the bandwagon or something like that, don't worry, there is a new season of Mushoku Tensei coming very soon. So there's also going to be plenty of the normal style of content back on my channel very soon. So, this has just been something that I'm interested in. And when I'm streaming, I just kind of, I feel like it's good to talk about current issues, things that people are finding out about day by day. And while I'm not a gaming channel, I am interested in gaming, and it gives me an excuse to wear this Tifa outfit, which I've decided is what I'm going to wear every time I talk about this topic. So if you see the Tifa outfit, it's going to be about Gamergate 2. If you see any other outfit, it's going to be about something else. So the first part of the drama that I kind of missed was we're all aware of the unfortunate passing of Akira Toriyama at this point. I'm not going to pretend I was some huge Dragon Ball fan. As you know, I'm not really that familiar with a lot of the long-running shonen. It's not really my genre. I've seen a few episodes of Dragon Ball, a few episodes of Dragon Ball Z, and that's about it. But I am more familiar with things like Dragon's Quest, and I believe he also did Chrono Trigger, which I haven't played, but I've watched some playthroughs of because I think it's kind of interesting. So, I'm not going to do some big long tribute to him or anything. There are plenty of better people than me that are more familiar with his work, but his influence was something that we do kind of hold sacred, whether it's in the anime or the JRPG communities. And Chris Kindred, who is one of the Sweet Baby Inc. people, decided to mark his passing by tweeting that he made both the worst black character and the best black character in the same series, and that takes some range. So effectively saying that he made a racist character. The character in question, of course, is Mr. Popo. And even I know, as someone who doesn't follow the series, that the design of that character is based on a deity, I believe, I think it's from Hinduism, but it's from an Eastern philosophy, basically. And so it's a similar thing to when Pokemon made Jinx, and people thought that the design of Jinx was based on, stereotypes of black people, but it wasn't. It was based on a folklore character from Shinto. And that kind of thing, you almost seem more racist for looking at that character who has literally jet black skin, that is impossible for a human to have. They're clearly designed after something supernatural, and being like, yeah, that's a racist character. And it's kind of like please just leave these things alone. You know, especially within 24 hours of his death. I really hated that. And, you know, my response on X was to tell him to fuck off. I literally just replied to the tweet saying, please just fuck off. I can't even think of anything witty to say to this. It doesn't deserve it. Just fuck off. And I got blocked, but, you know, it was worth it. Because that's all these people deserve. You can't expect a good response from that. You can't expect people to go, yeah, you're standing up for black people and all this sort of thing. You're not. You're being a dick. And you sound more racist by not going to the trouble of understanding what the design that you're criticizing was based on. You know, I hate it. I hate it very much. HJ Fires says Hindu, and he also says that Jinx was like a yokai. Yeah, Jinx was based on, I think, like a mountain demon from Japanese mythology, you know. Again, the skin is jet black. They kind of have, you know, folkloric characters that have jet black skin. Kind of like Buddy Gaddy does in Mushoku Tensei in the novels. They made him more kind of purple on screen in the anime because I guess it's just easier to show, you know, like reflections and stuff like that. It's just easier. Same as, you know, sometimes characters with black hair will have kind of like purpley looking hair. But with Mr. Popo, they did just make his skin jet black as it was designed to be. And, you know, that's not a feature of human black people. They have brown skin. You know, we say black and white, but we're not black and white. I mean, I suppose like albino people are really white, but, you know, the different amounts of melanin in your skin are never going to make you pure white or jet black. Those are things that are used for supernatural characters, and it doesn't, you know, like you'd have to be an idiot not to at least suspect that that was the case and do some research rather than just going, oh, this is a caricature of black people. And again, I'm not a Dragon Ball aficionado, but as far as I can tell, he is a good character. You know, he's a nice character. He's not evil or anything. So I really don't think that there was any place for this person to be saying that and disrespecting Toriyama the day he died, basically, or the day at least his fans found out that he'd died. And why they thought that would go well, I have no idea. I mean, sure, you can say whatever you want on Twitter, but don't expect it to end well for you when you're already currently in the public eye because of the Sweet Baby stuff. And you're basically saying, you know, all of the anime fans and the JRPG fans who are kind of mourning for one of the greatest people from that industry. And, you know, you're expecting people to be like, yeah, but he was a bit racist though. No. Just no. That's my views on that. I think it was just absolutely ridiculous that anyone would think it was a good idea to say that, especially somebody that's already being like highly scrutinized. And the idea that Toriyama had a racist bone in his body or whatever, really, you know, they made a lot of enemies that day. Still, moving on from that person, we then had other news coming out throughout the week about there was the Kotaku journalist who stood up for Sweet Baby Inc. and also seemed, from what I can gather, to have been trying to further the harassment on Kabrutus Rambo, who runs the Sweet Baby Inc. detected curated list on Steam. And yeah, they really have been going after that guy. And I think that's really what, when we look back at this period and say, well, what was it that sparked Gamergate 2 or whatever. It was the act of them trying to cancel him, I believe, rather than... We already knew, you know, we've been talking for months about how Sweet Baby Inc. were, you know, modifying games in ways we weren't keen on, you know? And as we started to learn more about their business practices, their funding, all of that stuff, looking at some of their employees and the really racist things they've said against white people, admittedly, you know, I mean, I personally think that you can be racist to white people, but I'm not American, and I know that the culture is different in America when it comes to the history of relations between black people and white people. You know, in Europe it's a bit different because, you know, the black people in European countries are, you know, they came here by choice, or their, you know, grandparents or parents came here by choice. It's a little bit different. So, you know, there's a lot more sort of integration and not so much like separation, people having serious grudges against things that happened a long time ago, because that just isn't the background of there being people from all different cultures living in European countries. So, you know, we don't have the same feel to it. And so, I mean, I wouldn't want to speak for American people. But at the same time, when you're seeing stuff like, coming from white people as well, you know, just saying like, oh, it disgusts me when straight white rich people do this, this and this. And it's just, if for a moment you could just switch out any of those things. There's also been a company a bit like Sweet Baby Inc., or I'm not sure if the woman actually works for Sweet Baby Inc., but there was a company that made a game. It was like a dating sim. I think it's called Validate, and it's kind of they've been the kind of target of a lot of interest this week, because the woman that's in charge of this project, she was sort of saying, we don't have any white employees because we want the people working here to feel safe. We don't want them to be subject to any microaggressions. And that's, you know, she said, you know, we can only feel comfortable when people like me are working here. And I was sort of thinking about that, because I thought, what if I said, I'm only comfortable working with people who are like me? You could take that one of two ways, or one of three ways, actually. If you took that to mean I'm only comfortable working with women, they'd probably applaud me and give me a job at Sweet Baby Inc. If by that I meant white people, though, then that would be awful. That would be an incredibly racist and exclusionary thing to say. If I meant straight people, because I'm not LGBT, if I said I'm only comfortable working with straight people, that would be terrible, you know? But if I meant women, then that would be all right. And it's kind of that vibe. It's like, no, just hire people who are good at the job, can do what you want them to do, and have a positive attitude towards working with the rest of the team. It doesn't matter what boxes they check. It doesn't matter what gender they are, what race they are. It matters what they can do, and it matters whether they can be a team player and get along and contribute something good to what you're doing. And yeah, it kind of like, it appalled me, really. I can understand if you're writing something specifically based in a certain culture, you might only want writers who come from that background. You know, I wouldn't really know how to write a dating sim for a kind of group of people that wasn't me. I wouldn't know how to write like a dating sim for gay men. I could have a stab at it. You know, being a professional, I would probably just play a load that already exists and figure it out. You know, but that's that's what you do as a commercial writer. If you're just trying to make a product that's kind of like comes out of the people that were the target audience for it, then I can understand why you might want writers from that background. But your programmers and your marketing people and all of that sort of thing, why do they don't. You can just hire the people that are best for the job without worrying about any of the rest of it. And microaggressions, I mean, I don't think I would want to work on a team where people thought microaggressions were a real thing, you know. I wouldn't. And I've worked in software. I've never worked in games, but I've worked in the software industry, and I've been on teams where I was the only woman. I was often head of departments where I was the only woman. And nobody really had a problem with me being their boss, even though I was generally younger than them and a woman, because of the way I manage things, which is to understand that the roles those people are filling are not necessarily like beneath me. I'm there to, like, as a manager, I'm there to kind of like dish out the work and stop any of the corporate nonsense that comes from higher up get in the way of them doing their work, which, whether it's coding, testing, you know, all those kind of things, and to sort of do the coordination of the project management type stuff, and to talk to the clients, because a lot of the people that want to do jobs like programming don't really want to be spending their days, you know, trying to explain complicated things to people from other industries. You know, that's not what they're there for. And because I always treated the people that worked in my departments as professionals that I had on board because of their skills, nobody ever treated me badly or differently because I was a woman. They, you know, they enjoyed working for me because I would shelter them from the nonsense that came from above, let them get on with their jobs. And that enabled us to always deliver things on time and stuff, which looked good for my departments. So if you try and run things like that, instead of worrying about microaggressions and safe spaces and all of that kind of thing, you know, you can have a great time at work and you can achieve good things and good products. But it doesn't seem like they know how to do that. Nige428 says, should have mentioned this first, but someone tagged Chris Kindred on one of my friend's Facebook status. He kept up the "there's a harassment campaign against us" spiel. I made sure not to interact any further. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't use Facebook anymore, but... And Chris Kindred is a strange one as well, because as far as I know, it is a man, but he's got a picture of, like, a black woman as his, like, profile picture on Twitter. Sorry, X. And it's kind of hard to know, because I wasn't sure if that meant it was a woman, because Chris is kind of a gender-neutral name. It's kind of like, is it a woman or is it a man that's just kind of like gone so far down the road of sucking up to these women that typically are in these kind of spaces? I don't know. I'm going to continue to refer to him as a man, because most of the videos I've seen have seemed to have discovered that he's a man, but, you know, he's very difficult to know. I don't like them, though, whether it's a man or a woman or a non-binary or what. I don't like that person because of everything I've seen them tweet. It's like... Elizabeth says, Elon can call it X all he wants, it's Twitter. I'm on board with the X thing. I've been calling it X ever since the name change. I actually like it. I think that Twitter just has that kind of like slightly dated feel now. It's a bit 2000s, you know, when everything was called like something, you know. Yeah, I actually think X is cooler. But speaking of Elon, he has been getting involved in all of this as well. Elon's been getting some blowback for his tweets about, or X posts, I suppose. I still call them tweets, but he's been getting some blowback for sort of saying that he feels that the gaming industry is being infiltrated by this kind of wokeness. And I mean, we know what Elon's like. You kind of like, when we talk about the Matt Walsh thing, you've kind of got like two ends of the spectrum. Elon's quite a lot older than Matt Walsh. In fact, Matt Walsh is younger than me, I found out today. He's like 3 years younger than me. And yet he's the most boomer person I've seen talking about these things. He's more boomer than my dad, who is an actual boomer. And that disturbs me. But, Elon's a lot older and he's all down with the kids and being all like, yeah, memes. Let's not be woke and all this sort of thing. And then you've got Matt Walsh, who's like 37, going, no, we should just stop playing video games altogether. People shouldn't do childish things. And it's bad for children to be killing each other in virtual worlds instead of, I don't know what he thinks kids should be doing. Playing conkers or something. Hula hoops, I don't know. So yeah, the deal with Matt Walsh, if you don't know who he is, he's one of the guys from the Daily Wire, which is a kind of like American conservative media outlet. And I would say that I don't necessarily think that the Daily Wire as a concept is a bad thing. It is good that there's people trying to make media that isn't affected by the whole ESG stuff. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the vibe, but then I'm not religious, and I think that's probably what sort of puts me off it more than anything. It's like you can agree with them to some extent, and then it will just start being about how, I should have 6 children and not be concerning myself with things like anime. And I'm just like, no, mate, that's not how I want to live my life. I would be so miserable. Not that I'm super cheerful now, but I that's kind of where they lose me on it. But I do appreciate that in some ways they're trying to sort of create an alternative to the sort of mainstream far left stuff. I don't enjoy their content particularly, but I think it's fine that they exist. It's just that if you're going to be talking about gaming or anime, he's just coming across like he's only just heard of this as well. When, the sweet baby stuff alone has been known about for months and has been a topic of discussion among people interested in video games for months. And Gamergate has had knock-on effects for like the last 10 years. And for him to be like, oh, well, now it's a trending topic, so of course I'm going to talk about it. But what you're saying about it is that you didn't even know any of this was a thing. And now that you found out it's a thing, you're like, well, what you need to do is just keep your children away from video games and stop playing them yourself. You're an adult. There's better things to be doing. And that's just such a reductive, ridiculous take to anybody. I mean, like, I don't know what he thinks video games are even like. It's just children killing each other all day in virtual worlds. Well, there are some games where you kill each other in virtual worlds. There are other games that are just like Minecraft or bloody Animal Crossing or whatever, Not everything is that. And, he doesn't get it. And I mean, like, most of the games that are pertinent to the sweet baby kind of controversy are narrative-based games. And I don't really see how it's any different from being interested in movies or books. It's another form of like storytelling. and the people who enjoy it for the same reasons people have enjoyed storytelling since humans kind of were a thing. You know, if he wants to get all religious about it, Jesus used to go around telling stories all the time. That was kind of his deal. So, you know, I don't think he was opposed to it. Of course, the Bible doesn't say anything about video games for obvious reasons, but there were games that adults used to play for millennia. You know, things like chess and that, they were not aimed at children. Children could learn them, but, you know, they've still been an adult pursuit for millennia. Maybe now people have the option to also play their strategy games in a cool, like, beautifully designed environment on a screen, you know, because that's something you can do now. It doesn't make it less valuable or less valid of a pastime. And storytelling, watching things, you know, there have always been plays and books, you know, and there were those things in Jesus's time. So if he'd wanted you to not, you know, engage with them as an adult because they're for kids, then I think he probably would have said that, wouldn't he? I mean, I'm not religious, I'm just sort of going on the path of, if you're thinking about it from his perspective, like the way everybody should live, you know, it's kind of like, if you're talking about that as a Christian and that's how you think everybody should live, well, when did Jesus ever say, don't relax and play board games with your friends or play cards with your friends? You know, that would be the kind of games people in his time were playing, but it's not really any different. It's not substantively different. It's just that now we have the technology to play more interesting games. And talking about anime being demonic, that's like, I've got this friend who moved to America for a while when he was a teenager. He's Italian. And he was super into tabletop role-playing games. And while he was there, you know, a couple of other kids from Italy that were on the same like program, they got together and started playing D&D. And people actually thought that they were doing something like satanic. And I always thought that was just a kind of joke that had happened, that people actually believed that people were summoning demons by playing D&D. And no, apparently that is something that people even in the 90s were accusing kids of. In the 90s and early 2000s, they just thought, and I mean, you can believe it, because I think in some places they were banning like Harry Potter because of the witchcraft and stuff. It's like, yeah, they don't really have a good relationship with fiction, especially fantasy fiction. And I think with the Japanese stuff, because, you know, it's quite rare for someone to be Christian in Japan, they kind of view the whole canon of kind of like demons and angels and all of that sort of thing as, you know, another form of mythology that you can be inspired by to write a story. You know, same as you might use ancient Greek pantheon, or, you know, Norse gods or Hindu gods, or, you know, something that has, or currently is, something that some people believe in, but it's also like a kind of it's got all the supernatural beings and stuff, and you might want to do that. You might want to put it in a story. And it's not like they're doing anything particularly blasphemous. They're not sort of making Jesus the bad guy in a shonen battle series or something. They're just like, angels, they're interesting. Exorcisms, that could be cool to put in a story, you know, things like that. And you'd have to be pretty unattuned to the fact that not everybody in the world believes the same things that you do, and that people who write fantasy stories tend to be inspired by things from all different cultures, because, you know, there's plenty of like mythological, folkloric characters and stuff that are interesting. And whether you end up coming up with something like Blue Exorcist, or whether you end up coming up with something like Gabriel Dropout, the fact that you've taken some minor things from Christianity to put in there does not mean that the thing is demonic. It's still just fantasy fiction or comedy or whatever you're trying to do with it. Network Crackle says, or even just the pantheon of Japanese gods like Noragami. Yeah, I mean, like that, I think, where a lot of the Shinto kind of gods, there's so many of them because they even have like local gods and things, and you know, like you would never really run out of inspiration just from like the mythos, and they do use that, but they also maybe look at like, you know, the artwork and stuff from like old Catholic things from the Renaissance and things, and think, yeah, it would be cool to put these angels in this, you know, that's it's just another source of inspiration. But people like that, they just look at something and go, I'm not sure about it, it's a bit creepy, I'm not keen on it. It's just like, well, don't talk about it then. And that's what he's been coming back and saying, you know, like, he's like, well, everybody's saying I shouldn't really have a right to voice an opinion on this stuff, but I always talk about what's current in the culture wars and things like that. And I'm like, it's not that you can't have an opinion. You know, I think anybody should be allowed to talk about anything they want. It's just that nobody's going to take your opinion seriously when you sound like a boomer from the age of 37 and you're talking about things that are ridiculous. And yeah, talking about how children shouldn't be playing video games. I grew up playing video games. My dad still plays video games, and he turned 70 this year. He runs a guild in some mobile game. He's just been getting into VR the last couple of years. He's got a Quest and all that, and he's big into that now. And for years, you know, I've been buying him like console games and stuff because, you know, like these days I get him into a new game franchise or something. Whereas when I was a kid, he got me into things, and he got me into stuff like that because he thought it would be good for me to grow up with an interest in computers and things like that. And he was right too, because I got interested in them because of games. I was able to sort of work in the IT industry from the age of 17 because I could already code. I'd already taken enough interest in all of those things. And, you know, he was right to think that for the future, that was going to be a valuable interest for somebody to have. And my dad was a lot more manly in terms of his job and responsibilities than Matt Walsh, as much as he goes on about what a real man is. My dad was a sea captain. You know, he's retired now, but when he would go away for 3 months on ships doing like dangerous things and that, and then he'd come home and he would have 3 months where he'd be at home and he'd want to hang out with me and my mum. And when he was hanging out with me, when I was a little kid, one thing that we would do together a lot was play video games because he wanted to use his relaxation time to do stuff he enjoyed. And when he's looking after his daughter, it's more fun for him to do something that he likes than to be like brushing the tails of my Little Ponies or whatever, you know. So we'd always have games, and just, I don't think that did me any harm. I don't think the kids who played Pokemon grew up to run dogfighting rings, you know, like. Nige says, if you ask me, a real man is a man who exists. I mean, yeah. But the way that he sort of talks about it, there's just this one type of masculinity, and it's about having a bunch of kids and being like, making sure that they touch grass all the time. You know, that seems to be the only thing that... But again, it's like, what makes, say, I'm sure that he would approve of doing sports, you know? that would be the kind of thing that he would approve of, because people used to do that in the 50s as well, and he seems to just think we should all live in the 50s, even though he wasn't even born then, and so probably has no idea what it was like. But it's kind of, you were born in the 80s, mate. You don't know. And I mean, I was born in the 80s too, so... but he kind of would probably think it was fine if a kid was super into, you know, not even necessarily doing sport, but watching sport. Say a kid was super into, I don't know, for argument's sake, ice hockey, and they just wanted to watch that on TV all day, and they were being really nerdy and following all the players, you know, the transfers between teams, all of that stuff, like I used to do with soccer. But say they were doing that, would that be better or worse than them being really into video games? You know, he would say that was good, because that's, you know, it's not childish and it's manly and all this. It's just like, no, you should just let people have their hobbies. No one form of entertainment is that bloody lofty, you know. And you just end up sounding like a boomer. I remember one time on X, back before I had a YouTube channel, when I was just on there as a writer, I was talking to someone about video games and like the storytelling in video games. And this woman just chipped in and like, oh, kids shouldn't be playing video games, they should be reading books. And I said, well, that's a bit reductive, you know, because a lot of the writing in video games is very interesting, and you also have the interactive element. So for a lot of people, it can be a more interesting way to experience a story than just reading a book. And she's like, oh, but they're just worrying about high scores and things. They're not expanding their minds. And I'm like, high scores? What do you think people are playing? Do you think people are playing Space Invaders, you know? Like, the boomers. I can't deal with it. Green Warrior says, my dad is the reason I'm into video games. Yeah, same. My dad's still into them, which is pretty cool. Killian KH says, well, it's always rose-coloured glasses. Earlier was always better. I mean, I'd get it if you thought like the 90s was better. You know, a lot of people of my generation think that. But being nostalgic for a period of time that you didn't live through, which is known for having a lot of things that we're definitely better off with what we've got now, kind of thing. Even in the 2024 with all this nonsense and all the bad things going on, it's still gonna be a better experience than being in the 50s for most people. Seth says Matt Walsh is a Fed. There are a lot of people who speculate about that, but I couldn't possibly comment. I mean, I can't say that I follow the man's career particularly. It's just seeing his takes on anime and games and just the boomerishness of them just kind of made me want to give my thoughts on him, really. Killian KH says, video games are very unique media because it's very involved story-wise. Films can't have 30 to 50 hours of story. Yeah, that's true. And also within a film, you know, you don't have any agency. You know, you also don't have engaging things to keep you occupied with what you're doing. You know, a good narrative game can also have an element of choice. You know, a good RPG will have a lot of choice and a good story, no matter which path you choose to go down. While also having the other elements that make playing the game fun or challenging or whatever you're looking for from it. Yeah, they're a different beast, but they are very much a valid form of media that isn't it's not numbing your brain. I think she thinks people are just playing like Space Invaders or something like that, because yeah, I guess if all you're doing is just kind of using muscle memory and trying to beat a high score, you're not really getting much out of it. But that's not what people are doing. Well, maybe the kind of boomer women who play Candy Crush all day, that's what they're doing. But what the people talking about Sweet Baby Inc. are doing is engaging with things that have intensive story work in them, all kinds of stuff like artwork, everything. You know, they can be used in so many ways to create so many different experiences and to tell so many different stories, and they deserve a lot of respect. You know, people should not treat them as it all just being nonsense. And you can also have things that are just creative. You know, Minecraft, you kind of, I'm not into that sort of game myself, but I don't think I would have a problem if I had a kid with them wanting to do a project in Minecraft. I think that would be fine. Why would it be fine for them to want to build something out of Lego? You know, that's creative and constructive. Whereas if they do it in Minecraft, where they can do something a lot more ambitious and have, you know, access to all the different resources they want instead of just what Lego I can afford to buy them, you know, then I would be quite happy that they were enjoying doing that. Enlius says, also games you can fit in a mixture of reading dialogue, which makes it easier than having actors read lines or act it out. Yeah, and it seems like people are concerned that Gen Alpha are having issues with literacy. I've seen a lot of reports on that. I don't really have a horse in that race. I ain't got no kids. I don't even know any kids. So, you know, that's somebody else's problem. But it's not a good thing, is it? I'd kind of always thought that as we got into the more sort of social media, internet age, you wouldn't be able to get away with being illiterate. You know, like, if you were an illiterate adult in the 80s, you could get away with that. You could still get a job, you know, that didn't involve reading or whatever. You could do all kinds of stuff and still have a pretty normal life. But you wouldn't be able to do that in, say, the 2010s, because there was so much reading involved in everything. Was blogs and Facebook posts and tweets and all this sort of thing, all words. But now we've kind of gone past that to everything is video, and it's just TikToks and stuff. And apparently their literacy is really suffering. And a lot of people think that's down to the sort of missed schooling during COVID, and they're just behind, rather than that there's a more serious issue there. So I guess it's something to kind of keep an eye on. But I mean, I would say that's a good reason to make them watch subbed anime, you know, because you've got a choice then. You're either going to have to learn Japanese or learn to read. Either outcome is going to help them in. Just make them play the Yakuza games, the ones that don't have the English localizations. You have to read novels worth of stuff if you're reading the subtitles. You have to read novels worth of stuff if you're reading the subtitles on some of those. Shaka Bob says there's something to be said for having physical hobbies too, but there's a lot of advantages to going digital, same with art. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not saying kids shouldn't be doing sports or crafts or, you know, all the other stuff. I would hope that they are still doing those things too. But I used to do those things and play video games. I think most of us did. You know, when I was a kid, I used to like to make things with Lego, but I also used to like to play video games. It's like, I don't imagine that kids now are any different, apart from these days they have whatever skibbity toilet is. But yeah, I really just kind of wanted to just rant about those various things that came up over the last week that I didn't get an opportunity to stream about, where I didn't have my equipment, where I was just in the boonies with my dad's dogs for a week watching Bojack Horseman and feeling sad. So you'll know how it is. But yeah, tomorrow I'm going to make a video for my actual channel, like a proper one with script and everything, because I've been working on some scripts. And after that, we'll be getting quite close to Mushoku Tensei. So there's going to be a lot of Mushoku Tensei content coming up on the normal YouTube channel. And stream-wise, I will be talking about whatever. If I feel like talking about Gamergate, I'll talk about that. If I feel like talking about anime, I'll talk about that. But SSA says, I played a lot of video games. I put like 10,000 hours into Skyrim. Man alive. Don't they say that it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something? Like 10,000 hours of practice to become like an expert. You must be like a master Dragonborn. I think the game I put the most amount of time into was probably Fallout New Vegas, but even then, I don't know exactly how much, because when I lived in America, I was playing it on my ex-boyfriend's account. So it was mixing my stats up with his. And then I played it again on my old Xbox 360 over here in Italy. And then I played it again on my Xbox One during the pandemic. So I don't actually know the total number of hours I spent on it, but I've done quite a few major playthroughs on that where I've tried to do everything, and you know. Seth says, have you ever played Hollow Knight? I haven't played it. My ex-boyfriend played it and I watched. You know, I kind of like doing that. I'm not really keen on platformers. I find them really stressful. So I liked watching someone else play it, but for me, it's not my kind of thing to actually play. Boney says, do you plan on streaming with SB again for Mushoku Tensei? We haven't really discussed what we're going to do to cover Core 2, because I stream on Twitch now rather than on YouTube. So I don't know. I mean, I would assume we'll probably do some kind of crossover at some point. But the weekly stream thing, I'm probably just going to try and get different guests on for each episode over on Twitch, and then I'll put that up on YouTube afterwards. I don't really want to be streaming on YouTube and kind of dividing what I'm doing between. I want to just kind of do videos on YouTube and streaming on Twitch from now on. SSA says, so does that mean you're going back to making videos? Yeah, I mean, I haven't really had much to make videos about recently. But for Mushoku Tensei, I really want to get into that. HJ5 says, going to do any videos on Bojack? Yes, I am. But I'm considering that those might go on my second channel because it's not anime. I think there are certain video ideas I've got which compare it to anime, which would go on the main channel. But things like actually just character analysis and stuff like that, I would like to do those on the much neglected second channel, so I can actually start building that up, because at the moment it has enough subscribers to be monetized but not enough watch time because there's only one video on it. So to get that monetized, I need to get some content on there. SSA says you can stream on both. Yeah, I'm aware of that. I just would rather not divide the audience, if you know what I mean. I would rather just, my streams are on Twitch and I post, you know, edited stuff from the streams onto YouTube, and the scripted videos are just on YouTube. The reason being, I'm not really comfortable with what I can and can't say on YouTube. Twitch, I feel a little bit more comfortable with live content, because if I accidentally swear or something, it doesn't just write off the whole video, because I can edit it out for the YouTube version if I need to, or anything like that. I just want to sort of stick to streaming on Twitch. I quite like Twitch. I'm enjoying being on here. And it also means you don't have, unedited live streams just like clogging up your videos. So where I want to stream fairly regularly rather than just once a week like I was doing before on YouTube, I really would prefer to just do it on here. I do try and think these things through. I don't just sort of do it on a whim, but it's not necessarily the case that I always make the right decisions, but I do want to at least have some kind of like structure to what I'm doing. So things like lore videos and character videos for Mushoku Tensei Season 2 will all go up on YouTube. Post-episode discussions will be on Twitch, and then uploaded to YouTube afterwards, after they've been edited. So I can feel a bit more free to talk about what I want. And I will try and get some other people on, if I can get SB, or if I can get Brandon, other people like that to come on, like we did in the summer. Just to make the discussions a bit more lively. Yeah. Sharkabob says the censor leash is always tightening. It's an American election year, so they're trying to push it harder again. Yeah, I mean, it's annoying that the fact that there's an election in a country I don't even live in has to affect my work, but it does. Yeah. Anarcro says, doesn't YouTube quarantine the live streams to a separate tab now, so they're separated from your other videos? Yes, they do. But at the same time, what I can do if it's on Twitch is I can edit it and then publish it as a normal video. So it's still an edited video rather than just the raw live stream. Yeah, it just works better for me, okay? I don't really want to go into every kind of factor in the decision, but that's the way I'm going to be doing it. If it seems like switching to streaming on both will be better, I can adjust as we go, but my plan for Core 2 is that the post-episode type streams will be on here, and then edited versions of that will be put on YouTube, but all the lore and character type stuff will be on YouTube as usual. I don't normally do episode reviews, that's not really something I'm into, so I prefer the kind of more free-form post-episode discussions. That's why we decided to do the streams in the first place in the summer. So that's kind of the way I like to approach that. I don't want to do a scripted review of each episode. I always find myself just sort of recapping stuff, and it just works better for people who do unscripted videos. And I kind of think if I'm talking without a script, I would rather do it to an audience. I feel really awkward just recording without a script, and no audience. I feel like I'm talking to nobody, and it feels really weird and strange. And then I end up sort of having to edit out so much of it that it takes longer than just writing a script, So for those kind of more free-form things that I think just work better that way, they're going to be live streams. The more sort of going into the story and talking about what's happening in the series, maybe the character videos for the characters I haven't covered yet who've appeared and will appear in Core 2, those will all just be on YouTube as normal. But I think that I'm going to wrap things up in the next few minutes, so if you have anything you'd like to say for this stream, then let me know now. I know this has all been quite a sort of newsy, ranty sort of one, rather than sort of messing around and having fun. But I had a lot of things I wanted to catch up on and give my opinions on before we kind of proceed as normal. Now I'm back home and I can stream whenever I want. So,